Hello and welcome to Mild Examinations. I'm your host, Michael Eldridge, and let's get this one on the way next so that I can kind of wrap my overall thoughts on David Cage and his series of works. Because if any of you have caught me live streaming in the past, especially this game, I don't like his works at all. David Cage, head of Quantic Dreams, is a French writer that has found a trick to keep people interested in his games because I doubt people would like them as much as if it was a movie. These games depend on a series of tropes. Choices more differing than Telltale, actively lying to the audience for the sake of a twist, mundane-ass masses gameplay, gimmicky controls, fat evil people, and short-haired women, no game overs because of a stupid belief, bad dialogue, romance, exposition, a little bit of sexism, casual racism, and a poor romance, and a acting like they're deep, but actually the most shallow of thoughts. In fact, one of my first experiences of this man was people joking about Heavy Rain, but I didn't really care at the time because all I heard was Jason and that type of stuff. But when I finally got interested in him again was when this game was coming out, Detroit Become Human, with the Super Best Friends Play channel talking about it on par with Tommy Wiseau or Neil Breen. Worked so bad that they were enjoyable to watch.
No amount of extra people can stop the story and plot from being a complete mess. Obviously, heterochromia brought really
kung fu.
Really stuck on that. Okay, robot will have robot drugs to keep them down, man. Yeah. And the game will be lavishly praised on release and will never be spoken about again in a month.
The reviews are already out and saying 9s and 10s.
9s and 10s.
Like,
Okay.
So, after watching playthroughs of Heavy Rain and Beyond Two Souls, as well as several playthroughs of this, as well as playing it myself, Detroit Become Human. Since this game has way more content than Manhunt 2, which I covered previously on the show, I'm going to just split the parts into sections. Story. The story of Detroit Become Human takes place in the year 2038, starting in August and wrapping up in about November. Let's focus on the characters, Connor, Marcus, and Kara. These are the three characters we control in the story, and these are the ones whose this world's story rides on, as their choices will partially change the world around them. So good so far, you might say. In fact, this sounds rather interesting. Well, of course, there are some caveats. There are plenty of set events, which unfortunately are some of the ones I wouldn't want to do, as well as are completely lying to you as the player, or you are walled into doing by the game's very limited walking areas. All of these characters can go deviant and gain autonomy, but still be limited by where they can truly do whatever, which may tie into one of the endings, which is on par with if in the next John Wick, he went back in time and killed his own dog and his wife to make sure he becomes a killer again. Imagine if someone thought that was a good idea. Imagine if someone wrote that story. Kara will always trust Zlatko. Marcus will always become Jericho's leader. Alice will always have a shocking reveal as a robot, and so on. Major choices for them are closer to the end, except for a real big one. Thankfully, one of the characters, specifically the one I like in particular, has the most open of the stories. Connor. A detective android whose task is to find out why androids are going deviant and prevent it. Of course, that one ending fucks this idea like a weeb and his waifu body pillow, but let's not focus on that, or keep that image in your head. You're welcome. He is teamed up with feature version of myself number 226, Hank Anderson, an alcoholic with a hatred of androids. Yeah, I don't fully like smart TVs, so fuck them. As the story progresses, either Connor can become more human and Hank start to like him more, or Connor stays more of a robot and Hank kills himself because shocking. No, I'm serious. It's literally why it's supposed to be shocking for you. Like they play it the exact way you'd think they'd play it. Because David Cage is a hack.
Oh, don't do the walk away gunshot.
Please
Yeah,
don't.
no.
It's implied enough.
Fuck!
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was about to say, David, it was implied enough as it is. Oh, okay.
Next is Marcus, the revolutionary who has the freedom button, is able to transmit the idea of going deviant to all robots. He was originally a caretaker android specifically made by the creator of the androids, Kamsky, the founder of Cyberlife. His story is a lot of set points, but at least his stupid decisions are usually tied to your actual choices instead of something they do regardless of whether or not you want them to do it. So it's more your fault if bad things happen, which unfortunately is not the case of our last protagonist. But I do want to talk a little bit more about Connor. Connor is honestly the interesting choice, but I do wish he was able to not go deviant. I wish he was not able to not, like, become the leader of Jericho, which is a real shame, because I would be interested in this character, like, just not trying to find Jericho. Kara is our last protagonist. Kara is a housekeeper who becomes deviant to protect a small child who's actually a robot, which unfortunately was so obvious it was stupid. And also the clue had to be hidden from the player to make you try and care for it, even though you could have just made it a human child and had this interesting dialogue of, hey, maybe we should keep this child, that's actually throughout most of the story, of you're keeping a human, why? They're trying to kill us all. But, like, if you know that it's not a robot, that dialogue is no longer important because the studio is actively lying to you.
Girl, you know humans hate us. Why are you protecting her?
She's like 12.
Because her
She-
succulent meat is mine. I've been
Believe her.
grooming it.
It's as simple as that.
Fattening her up.
Butter her.
And the other thing with Kara is some of her bigger stupid choices are tied to the story. You cannot avoid them. Unless, of course, you die.
Oh no! I just realized what I had to do is just save the frogs! Oh no!
Oh, fuck. That's insane.
Oh, absolutely. I know I'm supposed to care for it, but oops! 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 No, no! Oh no! I'm not sorry. Oop. I'm supposed to feel bad.
Which ties into that stupid belief I mentioned earlier about game overs. While I overall disagree with the concept that game over is failure of the game designer, I do like his application of this idea. If you write a story with death as a choice, I respect your choice to do so. However, game over in story-based games, which would include everything from God of War to even some roguelikes like Dead Cells, sometimes game overs aren't necessary because sometimes players make mistakes, especially if your game is a bunch of glorified button presses. And unfortunately, we come to here. We cannot go any further in this game without talking about how David Cage, who is credited as the main writer for this, imped the symbology, dialogue, mottos, and actions of the civil rights movement for this story that he claims isn't about race. In Detroit. Now, I'm not one typically to call any game political or offensive, but if there was a game that had a group of people copying the exact motto of the suffrage movement as well as several actions that they did, I'd say, hold on a moment, don't do that. This game uses the city of Detroit, cliches that would come from race movies written by out-of-touch white people, concessions made only because racial allegory is closer to your brain to the this is bad emotion. As far as I can tell, that's how David Cage thinks, at least. But understand that when you write something this way, the door swings both ways. You can claim the idea of robots equals black people. You add anything to the other side of the discussion that you add to the other side. Now, for example, in this story, robots were made to serve humans, which is not what the people of color are made for. They're not made... They weren't made to serve people, which was a common belief back in the day, and you've added that into the thing, and it's just like, but this time, with the robots, you've literally made them, and it's... you know what? I'm gonna link a video in my description. It's a Mother's Basement episode talking exactly about this for about 40 minutes. If you've got if you've got 40 minutes beyond what I'm talking about, I'd say either put that in your watch later or watch it now. In short, he takes the symbology, doesn't want to play with it, but he still takes the symbology because he knows he can. Part 2. The gameplay. The gameplay is more disappointing than ever. For a man who hates game overs, he sure does love his fucking gameplay corridors. This gameplay is on par with a Telltale game, and while your choices matter less than that one, at least they don't cost $60 fucking dollars. You can move your character at a sluggish pace, stop time to analyze your surroundings, and of course, interact with semi-random bullshit. Or interact with shit on your touchpad. Ooh, the future. Yeah, this didn't need to be a PlayStation exclusive. Hell, since the game's about to come out on PC as well, they're gonna have to change those prompts anyway. I'm really glad this wasted my fucking time, David. Some of this game's coolest sequences are away from prompts, including parachuting from the top of a building, parkour, and a few others that it would like to have at least 1 or 2 button presses more than they have, but it's just 2 or 3 button presses, and that's it. Because it could have been more engaging. Instead, I've got more button presses for mopping the fucking floor. This is such good gameplay, right? Emotions! Also, moving your character is sluggish unless they're running, and there's no choice in whether or not you're allowed to run or not. Part 3. Visuals. At least one of my more positive points is that it looks good, at least. The visuals are some of the most stunning I've seen when they're not stealing from better works. The visual artists did their fucking job and did it well. Any one of these shots could be used to advertise the game pretty well. My main issue with this, however, is how they force the story around and off-road for the sake of said visuals. Like, almost constantly. Okay, so they want to show, hey, this world is unjust. So they have your character get shot early in the game. So, early in the game, as Marcus, you arrive back in your ward's house to find someone has broken in. Marcus proceeds to call the police, make note of that, and then Marcus and his ward enter to find the ward's son, who does not live there, stealing artwork. Now, this is before Marcus goes deviant, so you will always call the police. You don't get a choice in that. But what you do choose upon going deviant is to whether defend yourself from the word son attacking you or take the hits. One causes the son to die and one causes the father to die. Both choices lead to you getting shot and ending up in the dump, which has very powerful visuals in that one, so I'm going to let it slide for a little bit. But the choices should not lead to this outcome. One with the son being injured, absolutely. I say, yeah, he should be shot in that case because that one is a case of clearly, the robot doing harm, and the robot's not supposed to do harm, so take it down because it's clearly broken. But the other one it's a heart attack. And there's clearly no evidence of harm on the body, as well as the robot having called the police, and like a series piece of evidence where the thing should not have happened the way it did. And it's really bad writing. And it hurts and it's clearly for the visual of him being in the junkyard when he should just not be at the junkyard. You should have run away, heard of Jericho, and then ended up at Jericho and been like, this place is a dump. I'm going to take it over. There's a level of disbelief I'm willing to take, but you double stack the damage instead when you act like you weren't trying to make a race allegory, David. David Cage can be as coy as he likes, but at the end of the day, he took a robot sentient story, added racial allegory, based in one of the most racially charged cities, stole iconography of the civil rights movement, and then has the fucking gall to say it's not about race. You are a hack, Cage. Not you, Nick. Get out of here. You're in like 3 weeks from now. Final thoughts. David Cage is a bad writer who uses the focus on emotions to try and excuse any of his failures, and also sets his goalposts as no game overs. But even that's technically a lie, since most of his choices are in fact illusions of choice. But hey, you get a tree of the choices currently, I guess. Maybe if the man wrote movies, people wouldn't try and praise the man as much, probably because his movie would suck and wouldn't have the shiny veneer of a pretty little video game in your pocket. But he is overall liked by the populace for some reason. I don't believe he's actually a massive racist, just an inept writer that relies on emotions. He has been improving over the years. I won't deny that. This is better than any of his previous Quantic Dream games. But he hasn't gotten where he needs to be a good writer, or a celebrated writer, or anything. He's not really done anything. The people around him have worked their fucking hardest. Like, I've been told multiple times by certain people that the best dialogue from this game was mostly ad-lib. Apparently, a lot of the fucking thing with Connor and Hank was mostly ad-lib on the parts of Brian Shirt and Quincy. Wait, Quincy or is it Clancy? Yeah, I think it's Clancy Brown. Either way, for apparently a lot of the Hank and Connor interactions, it was mostly ad-libbed, while most of the other things that I had major issues with were 100% script written. It's been a little bit since I originally first played this. I played it back in the day when it first came out. Then I rented it again to capture a bunch of footage for it. Then I decided to get it again whenever it came out on a PS4, PS4 Plus, to get a little bit more. I'm gonna just play some footage from the game right here. Just some of the stuff that I couldn't really show elsewhere. Because I know I've probably got a little bit more that I'm gonna realize last minute that I didn't add in, so I'm just gonna put this here. But yeah, like, this is definitely better than a lot of his previous work, and I'm glad that this game got out for free on a PS Plus, because I was never gonna buy it. Like, I never bought it. I'm glad I didn't, even though it's been cheap for a while. He's just not a great writer. And I think that's the end of it. I don't, maybe in like a few years, like maybe he'll finally wisen up and be like, all right, let's make an actual game and not a race allegory. Maybe it'll be good. I'm not going to hold my breath. The guy's been writing for a while, and apparently there's been some minor controversies going on at Quantic Dream. Don't know how true they are, but, you know. Anyway. Next time, let's do a real good one. Like a real good movie. I'll need to figure out what I want to talk about, but I want to talk about something good for once. Like, it's been a while since I talked about something I really liked. But let's try and find something that's a little bit out there. Something not everyone's been talking about. I could talk about Polar. I could talk about Spider-Verse. I could talk about Brightburn. Main thing is trying to figure out what I want. I'll have to go into my little, like, just dig through everything, see what's like, hey, can I find something? I don't know. I think I might run it by, X. See if because, like, he got really interested in that, one of my last episodes, and that's kind of the thing I want to do. I kind of want to, while talking about something, I also want to show something pretty cool. Something weird, something out there. So, we could talk about just the regular movies that come out. But, you know, everyone's got those types of critics already. You got your Jeremy Johns, you got your Chris Stuckmans, you got your Movie Bob. Either way, thank you very much for watching. And, the next episode after the next one will be a Neil Breen film. I promise.